Today we're tackling a topic that's all about space. No, not outer space. I'm talking about the space right here on Earth and the never-ending battle over how we use it. Whether it's farmland, forests, or city streets, everyone wants a piece of the pie, and that's where things get complicated. So let's jump in. First, let's talk about land use issues. When we talk about land use, we're really talking about all the different ways people use land, and trust me, there are a lot. You've got agriculture for growing food, industry for making stuff, housing for places to live, transportation like roads and railways, recreation areas like parks, and even wilderness areas that we try to keep wild. But here's the catch. There's only so much land to go around, and not everyone agrees on how to use it. That's where the competition kicks in. Take agriculture versus housing, for example. Farmers need big chunks of land to grow crops and raise animals. But as cities grow, that same land is often eyed for new housing developments. The result? A tug of war between growing food and building homes. And then there's industry. Factories, warehouses, and power plants all need space too, and they don't always mix well with housing or farming. Throw in the need for transportation, highways, railways, and airports, and suddenly you've got a real balancing act on your hands. But it's not just about who needs land. Sometimes it's about protecting the land itself. Wilderness areas and ecologically sensitive zones like wetlands, forests, and coral reefs are crucial for maintaining biodiversity and keeping the environment healthy. But these areas are often under threat from development. Whether it's cutting down forests for timber, draining wetlands for farming, or building resorts in fragile coastal zones, these developments can have big impacts on the environment. And that's where environmental groups step in, trying to protect these areas from being overrun. Another big land use issue is land claims by Indigenous groups. For many Indigenous peoples, land isn't just a place to live or work. It's a vital part of their culture, history, and identity. But throughout history, their lands have often been taken or developed without their consent. Today, many Indigenous groups are fighting to reclaim their lands or gain more control over how they're used. This can lead to legal battles, negotiations, and sometimes significant changes in how land is managed. So, how do different groups respond to these issues? It's a complex puzzle with lots of players involved. Governments, whether they're municipal, state, provincial, or national, are usually at the center of land use decisions. They make the laws and policies that determine who gets to use the land and how. For example, a city government might decide to protect a green space from development or allow a new housing project to go ahead. On a bigger scale, national governments might designate certain areas as national parks to protect them from development. But governments aren't the only ones with a say. Local residents often have strong opinions about how land is used in their communities. They might support new developments that bring jobs and housing, or they might oppose projects that could harm the environment or change the character of their neighborhood. Public hearings, petitions, and protests are just some of the ways residents can make their voices heard. Then there are environmental groups. These organizations work to protect natural areas and promote sustainable land use. They might push for stricter regulations, lobby against harmful developments, or organize campaigns to raise awareness about the importance of conservation. As we mentioned before, Indigenous groups play a crucial role, especially when it comes to land that holds cultural and historical significance. They might seek legal recognition of their land rights, negotiate with governments and developers, or manage the land themselves according to traditional practices. And let's not forget about non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. These groups often work alongside communities and governments to find solutions to land use conflicts. They might help mediate disputes, provide expertise on sustainable development, or support Indigenous groups in their land claims. In the end, land use issues are all about finding balance, balancing the needs of people with the needs of the planet, and balancing progress with preservation. It's not easy, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. But by understanding the different perspectives and working together, we can find ways to use our land that benefit everyone. That's it for today's geography lesson. Next time you pass a park, a farm, or a construction site, remember, there's a story behind how that land is being used, and it's a story worth telling.